From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven Erlandson, takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Hello, fine people. It's good to have you here. You are in for a live taping of the broadcast of the Badass Counseling Show. Tongue got a little twisted there. So coffee is still going to work this morning. Whether you are tuning in from the Susquehanna River Valley, or perhaps you are way up in northern Minnesota, where at the headwaters of the mighty Mississippi, or perhaps you're in Algonquin, Maine, on the water. For all the water people today, it's good to have you here. If you are on or at or near water, a river, a lake, a rivulet, a creek, or even a crick, it's good to have you here. I was just referring to a friend today. Earlier this morning, we were talking about how when we were kids, we used to drink out of mud puddles on the street.
That explains a lot, actually.
Blue collar, poor kids in the 70s. So yes, if you are at or near or imbibing in water today, hey, welcome to the human race. I am joined in studio by KC over in the booth. Brilliant as always. And Rob the Rocket sitting next to me. What say ye today, Rob?
I love that you press forward no matter what. Damn the torpedoes. Full speed ahead. Rob, take two. No, just keep going. I love it. Love it.
If we're going to kill it, let's kill it hard. And any interesting news in the news today, Rob? Any music news I should know about?
Not that I can think of, but I'll work on it. Sometime during the show, some music reference will come up, and if I don't get it right, I'll edit it in later.
Yeah, he always does that. All right.
I did it once, okay?
All right, folks, here we go. I am taking your questions. Please feel free to fire away. I've got Michelle here on TikTok, and Michelle says, I got into a disagreement, and he brings up how my ex beat me, and maybe he should, and I'm pathetic. Okay. So obviously Michelle is talking about her lover, her partner, her husband, one of those. And I'm going to read that again. It just flips on me. These things. Okay, here it is. I got into in a disagreement, and he brings up how my ex beat me, and maybe he should, and I'm pathetic. Michelle, I think I speak on behalf of literally every single person listening and saying you need to get the hell out of that relationship. First of all, a threat of violence is basically the last step before the violence itself. Second of all, anybody who is such a fucking asshole as to bring up damage that was done to you in the past and to weaponize it in an argument, in a conversation, is a bigger fucking asshole. Furthermore, anybody that jokes about doing violence, especially in a heightened state where you guys are arguing, anybody who jokes or threatens violence, and by the way, him saying maybe I should, that is a threat of violence. It is hard to leave domestic violence situations. I have been in long-term relationships where I was on the receiving end of domestic violence. So I know what this is. And people think, you're 6'4", 270 pounds. Surely, who's going to fucking, what are you, married to a Russian shot putter or something? Or, something like that. It's like, it's no joke. This is no joke. Even a big person, the mental shit that goes on and the fears and the threats and all that is powerful. And Michelle, I know you maybe don't want to. Maybe you think when he's good, he's great though, and so on and so forth. But anybody who would even go to there, joke about that or threaten that, as he is doing, you want to get the fuck out. And you don't actually ask a question. And furthermore, him calling you pathetic, we have all said hurtful shit in a relationship. We all have. I am guilty of saying hurtful shit when I was younger in relationships. And what we eventually do is we move on from those relationships. We get the fuck out and we create better relationships. We make our own lives better so that we're not hurting people we love. And anybody who is willfully hurting you in an argument, especially threatening violence, is not someone you want to be with. Rob?
On the same topic, Sven, on YouTube, someone says I'm in an IPV relationship, which means intimate partner violence. This is a thing. And this person wants to leave. The person is with a manipulative partner, but they've messed up their credit to the point they had to file bankruptcy.
Okay. And so presumably then, because I've messed up my credit, I can't get a place or rent a place, something like that. I'm going to tell you the back end, what happens. I've counseled people for 30 years. You guys know that, okay? As a pastor, as a therapist, okay. And one of the things that happens is very often, this isn't an always sort of thing, but when you are in some sort of IPV, interpersonal, intimate personal violence relationship, intimate partner violence. That's a new acronym for me. Thanks for that. I can't keep up on all of them. But when you're in some sort of violence, in a situation where you're living intimately, closely with somebody and they're doing violence to you, and you think, I can't leave, or there's this situation, or there's the kids, or they're threatening to kill me, and so on and so forth, it's terrifying. It's fucking terrifying. Zip, zero, no, I totally understand. I totally understand that. But here's what happens. By the time I'm counseling them 5 or 10 years later, or someone is counseling them, a professional in the field of counseling, or by the time they finally get out, it's not that it has gotten easier, and so now they can get out. It's not that their credit score has improved. It's not that now they have money, or now, see, before I couldn't get out because I didn't have people who would support me, and now I have people who support me. Very often, do you want to know what makes the ultimate change? It actually gets worse. And you reach what I call the fuck it point. You reach a point where I don't care if I don't have credit. I have to get the fuck out of here. Okay, very often it doesn't get better and then I'm able to leave. It actually gets worse and then I have to leave. And the truth is, back when it was bad, you had to leave. Back when it was just starting, you had to leave. But you thought, I can't, or I'm not sure, and things like that. And so very often what happens is, I understand that your credit is bad and so on and so forth. But the truth is, first of all, there are shelters. And not only that, you can rent apartments at least in the US, and I believe also in Canada, where you're just renting a room. When I was living in LA for a number of years, even when I was living in Minneapolis for a few years, I would rent a room. Some of my closest friends to this day, one in particular, he and I shared a 1-bedroom apartment. We were both writers, and I slept in the living room. He slept in the bedroom, and it was great. It was awesome. All right. And I was in my 30s at the time. And so the notion that it can't be done on bad credit, you can do it, and you've got to find a way. You do not want to stay in violent situations or potentially violent situations, because it will only get worse. This shit does not magically heal itself. It's not going to get better. You have to go in with the mentality that if violence is happening, it's going to get worse, and you got to protect yourself. And if you have children, absolutely unequivocally, you have to get out. You have to find a way. And that's what so many people that I counsel later down the road, shit, man, I stayed in 10 years later than I should have, et cetera, et cetera. But you still had kids. And they said, I just finally reached a point where I had to find a way. I found a way. All right, next question. And Michelle follows up by saying, I don't ever call him names, but he does. I just try to talk about his drinking and he gets mad. Of course he does. He doesn't like anything that criticizes him. Michelle, you're looking for a solution. You're trying to figure out a way. You're trying to caress the situation. And that's not how it works when you're dealing with someone who is violent or potentially violent. All right. And Leslie says, you can do that in Australia too. Rent a room sort of thing. Okay. All right. Amber Nicole on Facebook asked the question, do you ever get free from a narcissistic sociopath? I feel like my kids and I are going to be in fear forever. As you guys know, in place of narcissist, I say extreme taker, sociopath, just somebody who's fucking nuts and unleashing their hell on everyone. Do you ever get free from? There's only one way to find out, and that is to fucking do it. And you have to do it. And you say, I feel like my kids and I are going to be in fear forever. You have to start. You have to start, because the truth is, by staying in the relationship, you're still in fear forever. If you have children, parents, you have to understand, job one as a parent, job one is protection. Job one is protection. All right, from violent, from enemies, foreign and domestic, and you have to protect them, and not just physically. Parents, okay, and now I'm talking to a lot of men right now. That our job as men has traditionally been defined as, you got to protect your kids, from the wolves outside the door, or protect your daughter when she gets 13 because all the boys are going to get in her pants. Of course, now a lot of the roles are inverted. A lot of times it's the girls who are nuts, going after the boys and whatever. The point is simply this. It's not just physical protection. It's not just financial protection, roof over the head, clothes on the back. It's emotional protection. And so many of us men, and I'm 57, So many of us men growing up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, hell, even now today, 90s, 2000s, 2010, there's still this mentality of men, just be tough, and just tough is all that matters. They're emotions, fuck emotions. Yeah, okay. Tell me that when your fucking hunting dog at 13 years dies. Tell me that when your 7-year-old daughter has to go in for a third surgery. Tell me that toughness is the only thing. Yeah, okay, you'll be a fucking ball of fucking puddle of tears. All right? Because it's normal. Feelings are normal, all right? So to emotionally protect your child means you don't just be a fucking dick all the time or much at all. A great leader doesn't have to be a dick very often, right? A great person motivates with love, with appreciation, with kindness, and with toughness. Sure, that's part of it. Keeping kids on their chores and so forth. That's an expectation. And following through, but following through without the dickness, right? And so it's emotional protection. And you guys have heard me talking about this a lot lately. As parents, we have a responsibility to draw the child out, to allow them to express their feelings. I had a counseling client just this week, and there's trauma in the family, and there are 3 kids. And my client told me 2 of my kids, teenagers, and 1 is 11. And 2 of my kids are basically locked down. They're handling it fine, Sven. They don't really have any emotion over it. But one of my kids is just like really out of control and a lot high emotion over everything that's going on. And they're like, what do I got to do for this kid? I'm like, are you kidding me? That's the one that has the most hope. And this client was like, what the hell are you talking about? I said, the one that is expressing it is giving themselves permission to express it. Now, they just need that channeled into productive ways of expressing it. They need to be taught how to find words. They need to be listened to. The 2 that you need to be most worried about are the ones that aren't expressing anything. And they're like, well, that doesn't even make sense. They're doing fine. I said, they're not doing fine. What they are doing is what so many men and women have done for so many hundreds of years, and that's just stuff that shit down. And guess what? They may be, quote unquote, doing fine now. Give it about 20 years. Give it 10 years. Fuck, give it 4 years. But especially give it 20 or 30 years. And all that pain, all that suffering, all that fucking rage, all that sorrow will unleash its venom in all of their decisions. Not only that, it will affect their fucking parenting. The ones you need to be most concerned about in life are the ones that are locking that shit down, because it'll always, that pot that they're putting it in, they're going to keep doing that. And they're going to put more in there. And now you've got a pressure cooker, right? And so then this becomes the young man or the man who, I got a long fuse, but once I blow, I blow. Yeah, I'll bet you do. Because you've been stuffing all your fucking sadness, your hatred, your anger, your sorrow, and disappointment, betrayal into that pot, right? See, the thing is feelings are meant to come into us and go out of us, come into us and go out of us. But if you do not facilitate the exit of the feeling, any feeling is just the body's release of energy. If you do not facilitate the release of that energy from you, it stores, and it stores as a negative thing. And it is going to so bite you in the fucking ass later. And so if you've got children who are just stuffing down their pain, get them into therapy, teach them to start counseling, or teach them to start journaling. I started when I was 13. Hell, you start sooner. I have clients who have started their kids sooner. Then teach them language. Start to teach them language for feelings. That's what it means to emotionally protect a child. It's not just protecting them from the wolves outside the gate. It's not just protecting them from, financial ruin or whatever. It's protecting them emotionally. And we've got to start making that part of the conversation, folks, because that's where all this fucking mental health trauma is coming from. This is where all the soul health, unhealth is coming from, is people being taught to devalue the significance of the feelings when the feelings are just in the body's natural way of expressing, of pushing out bottled up, generally negative energy. All right, next question. Here we go. Sven, is it gaslighting if someone suggests your thoughts aren't your own? Yes, of course. Of course. Your thoughts aren't your own. They might as well basically be saying, my thoughts should be your thoughts. They're invalidating your thoughts, invalidating your feelings. Next question. I'm so jaded by my relationship experiences that I'm closed off. What do you think about that? She says. Literally, she says that. I love that.
You have thoughts?
No, it's more like, so suck it, old man. All right. I'm so jaded by my relationship experiences that I'm closed off. What do you think about that? I think that's sad, but I think it's totally fixable. And it's fixable in ways that don't have to fucking take forever, Charlotte. All right? Jaded by your relationships. Jaded means pain. Jaded means bitter. Jaded means resentment. And I'm not saying it ain't justified, Charlotte. I'm really not. I'm just saying that if you desire to have a relationship, maybe you don't, that's fine. If you desire to have a relationship with your own self, your authentic self, then that pain and all the sadness, the rage, the anger, the fear, because that's what jaded is by past relationships. It's now impacting, causing fear in new relationships, fear of opening up. All of that is disturbing your own connection to your own self because the fear and the anger and the disappointment and the rage are all swollen in you, so you can't even hear your voice. So those pains, those past people who have hurt you are fundamentally running your life now. You can go as tough guy as you want to go, but the bottom line is if you got that shit in you, you are living in reaction to all that shit. That means that person that hurt you, maybe it was a girlfriend, maybe it was a boyfriend, maybe it was a parent, maybe it was a brother, whatever it is. And even if some of those are still operational in your life today, some of those relationships, or not, they're still running you because they are causing you to act against what you want to be acting. Do you guys get that point? That if you are still responding to past trauma or you are still staying closed down because I'm afraid of opening up in a relationship, which is fine. I've been there. I get it. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying that if you're in that situation, then what that means is that person who caused you pain is still in control of the situation and they don't even fucking know it. They're winning. All right. You okay with that? What do you think of that, Charlotte? And so the point is to get our ownership back, to come back into communion with my own self. Where my authentic self is running the show, I have to get all those other voices out, which means I have to go into the pain, the fears, and the bullshit beliefs I was taught about myself, which is precisely what the book is for, folks. It will literally walk you through the process and kick your ass. Now, I know you guys are looking at these books in front of me and you're saying, wait, does not compute. That says there's a hole in my love cup, but that other one says, hay un agujero en mi taza mi amor. And I don't speak Spanish. Latin, yes, not Spanish. And what is that? Well, that's the Spanish version. All right. So we got the Spanish version, which has actually been selling really well lately because we're finally, we've got it in Spanish. Anyway, you guys, that's the tool. You got to get out the pain, the fears, the bullshit beliefs you've been taught about yourself. Otherwise, those people in the past that caused you pain are still running your life today. Do you get that? Your mother still owns you. That ex-boyfriend who hurt you still owns you to some greater or lesser degree because it's impacting the pain that person caused you is impacting your decisions today. Are you okay with that? Rob?
Here's one on YouTube I think you may like.
Yep.
V. Young says, I was married to an extreme taker minister in a controlling cult for 22 years, and then he left, and I have trauma from him just up and leaving. Now that I'm dating, I've noticed I have codependency. How do I get over the abandonment trauma and break my codependency feeling and find my way in life? By the way, thank you for your time and your videos, Sven.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you for saying so. As you know, I was a pastor off and on for 17 years, whatever it was, and I still do weddings and funerals. I've got, and my dad was clergy, 4 of my uncles were clergy, masters in divinity and global religions and shit like that. I get it. The power of religion is fucking powerful shit. And then to be in a cult on top of it, which adds a whole nother level. And a lot of mainline looking churches can become cult-ish, but you are actually in a cult. And that's a high pressure, high intensity environment. And you're saying that then contributed for roughly 20 years. And in this relationship, that fucking chewed the shit out of you. And now you're in a relationship where you are basically codependent, right? Where you're giving love so that basically they'll be nice to you. And so what then in that, Rob, is the question?
How do I break my codependency feelings and find my way in life?
You break any feelings or you break any bad pattern that you don't like by going into it. You clearly still have pain. You clearly still have thoughts that you were taught about yourself. And see, the setup really, and you may not like this, or maybe you will, the setup to be in a situation in that first relationship where you're being so manipulated and mistreated and so forth is continuing now, just in a different iteration, in a different incarnation. But it found the setup was way back in childhood. The belief systems that were set in place in childhood, teaching you fundamentally that your voice doesn't matter, teaching you that you have to endure these sorts of situations. That's what's really operational here. It's not just this new relationship I'm in and I'm having to fix basically the shit from the old relationship. It predated that old relationship. That's what has to be gone into. And so where you begin, and again, this is what my book is for, is to walk you into the process of identifying those core beliefs that you were taught as a child. But fundamentally, it also requires you clearly haven't fully processed that past relationship. And what it's being driven by is I have to please you in order to get love. I have to make you fundamentally more important than me. Do you see how that's a core belief? And do you see how that didn't get created? If you had grown up in a belief system of your voice is valued, your feelings, your sense of self is valued and is good, and that you gain love not just by giving away love, which is not a bad thing. The idea of giving love is a good thing to be grown up in, as long as it is balanced with you have the right to say no. You need to say no. You need to listen to your own voice. You need to be quote unquote selfish as well. But you didn't get that. And therefore, you're at this age of your life right now. Maybe it's 40, maybe it's 50, whatever it is. And you're still engaging in behaviors that are fundamentally you being an extreme giver, hoping to get some love in return. All right. And that is a non-functional way to live long term. Rob, you got to follow up?
Nope.
Oh, I thought you did. Sorry. And so the way to break it is, again, go into the pain of your last relationship. You got to start flushing that out, whether it's with your therapist, your clergy person. I'd be surprised if you have a clergy person at this point, having been in a cult, which is great. That's fine. No problem. Or in your own journaling, writing letters to that ex that you don't send. But you've got to start flushing out all the pain and the fears. But you've really got to drill down to those core beliefs that got pressed into the wet cement of your soul and hardened and set you up for that last relationship and for this relationship.
Now there is a follow-up.
Go ahead.
Maybe V heard you. Ouch.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I thought of that. I never thought of it, I guess. In that way, I did grow up in an abusive family.
Right. And that's just it. And again, that's what the book is for, people. I'm not just here schlepping the book. The book's an Amazon bestseller in the field of inner child, all right? The book works. I got about, 1,300, 1,500 reviews, and most of them are 5-star reviews. What's my point? The point is it works. I wouldn't be fucking hawking it unless it fucking helped change lives, all right? And the purpose of that book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, is to walk you backwards, to help you begin to identify those messages that got pressed into wet cement on your soul, which raised the question, what the fuck was there even wet cement doing on the bedrock, the terra firma of myself? Somebody poured it there because they wanted to overwrite their messages onto you. The bedrock of your soul is your authentic self, all right? And I know this is all metaphor terminology, but I don't know how else to convey it, okay? And the terra firma, your bedrock, is your authentic voice. It's ever been in that place where you just know something is right? Your intuition, some call it, your gut, your instinct, some call it. It's roughly the same language. But somebody, when you were a child, to some degree, we influence our children. We wire them into our values. Be nice to old people, always work hard, take time to play, those sorts of values. But when we pour cement over that and write in that cement, you're a loser, or you really don't matter, you're unlovable, I don't want you. When those messages get in there, you don't see them coming because oftentimes they're not explicit. And then those core beliefs that you can't even see become like a virus infecting an operating system. They take over the entire operating system. And that's what has to be, you got to go in and extract all that shit so that you can begin to operate from a sense of self. And yes, I grew up in a good home, but I still, for many years, was an extreme giver. Why? Because my parents were these wonderful, giving people. My dad was a pastor. Mom was a director of Christian education and taught at the graduate level of the largest Lutheran seminary in the world for years. And so the point is, I came from a home where giving is good, but we weren't taught the other side of it, that you've got to honor self is what we did to some degree because they'd talk about burnout. But you've got to be selfish. You've got to protect your own sense of self as well. And so while that wouldn't be characterized as abuse per se, it's a form of negligence, even good intention negligence, because you're not teaching the child that you have to have boundaries to protect yourself, et cetera. Go ahead, Rob. You want to say something?
Just one more follow-up from the same person. I forgot I have feelings and I have the choice to not stay with people.
And the truth is, folks, and I'm glad you brought up feelings and choice in the same thing. You don't have a choice about feelings. Okay. You have a choice of what you do with it, but feelings are an involuntary, natural response to a situation. So if I'm out on my property, you guys see me do all my videos on TikTok and social and all this stuff, millions of followers and all that crap. If I'm out in my woods and I'm putting in new fencing, all right, and I'm hammering with my hammer and I hit my fucking thumb for the 4th time this month, my neighbor's half mile up the street, half mile down the road, Paul and Leslie, they're going to hear me screaming bloody murder at the top of my lungs. I'm going to be crying at the same time and rage-filled at the same time and frustrated because it's the 4th time this month that I've done that. I got about 3 feelings going on. Feelings are natural purging. I can't not feel it. Now, I can take that feeling, which is there. It's there. And I have clients who are taught, if I was out mending fences with my old man, he wouldn't let me scream. He wouldn't let me cry. He'd just make me stuff it down. I said, oh, so you're acknowledging that you had the feeling then? He's like, well, yeah, obviously I had it. Exactly. You can't choose to not have a feeling. The feeling is the body's natural response to purge this energy from my system. What you choose to do with it then, bottle it up and stuff it down, that's a long-term bad fucking idea, all right? But the bottom line is you can't choose feelings and what you're going to, either you're stuffing it down or you're feeling it, all right? The feeling is a natural response. The wise decision is to allow that out of you. That's how we fucking heal, all right? And much more to come right after this short break.
My best friend made me listen to some podcast, said it had blown her away. So we listened to a lightning round of the Badass Counseling Show together. All I can say is, wow. First podcast I had ever listened to. Now it's my addiction. If you haven't done it yet, you need to subscribe to the Badass Counseling Show.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform and is not medical advice. Now, back to the Badass.
And we are back on the Badass Counseling Show. I am Sven Erlandson, the host, joined in studio by Casey over in the booth and Rob the Rocket. I've got a question here from Sydney Shock on TikTok. Good to see you, Sydney Shock. How to let go of resentments for good. All right. Great question. I love it. And it's a quickie. The way you let go of resentments for good, that implies I've let go of it, but I haven't let go of it for good, or it keeps cropping back up. All right, guys. And we're sort of in a bit of a thread here today. What happens to feelings, right? You can stuff it down, or you can say, oh, I'm over it. I'm just over it. I'm past, what that bitch did, or he was such a jerk, but I'm past that. Okay. But you're saying, how do you get over the resentment for good? So in other words, I'm betting you stuff that shit down and it comes right back out. Or I find myself getting too easily angry. And I know it tracks back to when my brother this or my ex-wife, blah, blah, blah. Okay. How do you get rid of resentments for good? You do the thing that you don't want to do. And that's it. That is, you go into it. You have to welcome up. You have to allow the very thing that you've been stuffing down or running from to stay away from, that tidal wave of all your feelings that's been chasing you, wanting to overtake you, that you don't want to fucking feel, that you stay so busy, you stay distracted. What's your mechanism? And this is to everyone. What's your mechanism from running from all the shit inside of you that you don't want to fucking touch? Is it gambling, booze, pills, pot, over gaming, over swiping and scrolling, overworking, over parenting, over exercising? Chaos. Maybe you just love being busy, chaos. Or maybe it's cleaning. I know 1 or 2 people. Clean. Clean the garage, clean the mower, clean the tractor, clean all the animals' butts. Clean, right? Why? Because then you don't have to face your shit. So you ask the question, how do you let go of resentments for good? You stop running from that tidal wave of all your shit. You stop running and you sit it and you welcome, for the first time in your life, welcome all of the feelings. But then I feel like shit. It's like when people go to counseling and say, I don't like counseling. It makes me feel uncomfortable. That's the point. If you're going to bring all those feelings, those files and files of feelings and pain and sadness and sorrow and misery and anger out of the vault and put the file in your lap, it's heavy and it hurts and it sucks and it's uncomfortable. Yeah, which means you have to have a mechanism for the facilitation of the exit of those files. A mechanism to facilitate the exit, the purging, the releasing, the flushing of all those feelings. And that's where lightness comes. The lightness is preceded by the heaviness. Those of you that watch when I do the occasional live video from my office or my home office, or those of you that are familiar with the tattoos on the back of my arms, or those of you that have read my stuff or know my stuff, know what? Creation is invariably preceded by destruction. Creation is invariably preceded by destruction. Lightness is invariably preceded by darkness and heaviness. And if you're not willing to feel the dark and the heavy, you will never have the light. You will never have the spontaneous energy. So how do you get rid of the resentment for good? You welcome up all those feelings you've been running from. You facilitate their exit by journaling, by writing letters you don't send, by talking it out with your therapist or your best friend. But words. It's not enough to just go and work out. Or I go running every time I get stressed out, Sven. No, you're running. Or Sven, I just do yoga and that gets it all out of me. No, folks, it doesn't, because those core beliefs, until they are articulated and named and put into words, they're not out. So how do you get rid of resentment for good? You welcome up the feelings, you welcome up the pain, you welcome up the memories that you don't want to fucking touch. And you start writing. Just get a pad and a pen of paper. That's all you fucking need. And just start writing all of it. I remember this memory, and God, I was so scared. And man, I'm so fucking pissed. That guy, he's such an asshole. God, I'm so fucking mad. And you're like, well, I did it once, Sven, but then it comes back. Exactly. You keep doing it until it's gone. And folks, this doesn't have to take forever. The most important thing when you are doing self-work, when you are doing self-healing, it doesn't have to take forever. Somebody sold us a bill of goods that healing has to take 10 years. No, it doesn't. Transformation can be immediate if you go deep enough and keep going deep enough. All right? And I've seen it once, I've seen it a million times in my own life. Out of a 12-year suicidal depression, I finally figured out the way. My backbone of all my work for 30 years is based on that experience with myself. So I don't sell shit. I don't talk about shit unless I know it works. And I've been using it with clients for decades. And this transformation that you so desperately want and scares the fucking bejesus out of you, because you know you got to bring up those memories and all those feelings. All right? But it is the way. And you bring it up and you facilitate the exit. All right, next question. Here's a good one. I like this. Amber Nicole. This is a good one. You guys will enjoy this. Injecting a little bit of humor today, but seriousness. Serious topic, serious question, but a little bit of humor in there. This is over on Facebook. Amber says, do you guys think narcissists know? And you know me, I changed narcissist to extreme taker. Okay, so do you think extreme takers know how stupid their excuses sound to normal people? I like that. Amber. Thank you for that. No, I think if you tell a lie long enough, people will fucking believe it. I think they have to so believe in their belief system, their own fucking self-righteousness, that largely they can't allow themselves to believe or think about how stupid they feel. But I have worked with many narcissists, or as I call them, extreme takers over the decades. And I have seen plenty who don't want to change, won't admit shit, right? Or will admit just enough to seem transparent, right? The illusion of transparency, but ultimately they maintain the shit. But I've also seen them change. I've also seen them want to change. And some will say, Sven, we had a guy on the show when Rob and I was March 23rd of 2022, I want to say. Yeah, no, or 23. No, this was the one, you'll know the episode, where we had the woman who had come out of a relationship with a narcissist, and then we had the guy, they didn't know each other, right, who was self-admitted, trying to recover from narcissism. And the only reason he was doing it because he was about to lose his wife, and he adored his wife and kids.
I recall.
Right. And it's only loss. The only thing that will ever get a narcissist to change is pain from loss. That's the only fucking thing. The thought of losing something or they've lost something, right? It's pain. Change will not occur until the pain gets bad enough. Particularly true. So do they know how stupid they sound? Sometimes they do, but more often than not, they can't allow themselves to. They just railroad through it. They just ram it down everyone's throat, and they don't think about how stupid or not it may sound, because what they've found is the more aggressive I am, the more I push it, it doesn't matter if it sounds stupid because the other person will believe it anyway. Rob? You have the next question.
Yes, I do. On YouTube from Brandon, I am currently healing from emotional neglect. My siblings weren't affected like me, but I'm a very sensitive person. Parents don't see what they did wrong. What can I do to make them see that? How can I make them see my issues are trauma, not just because I'm screwed up? No one is born with zero self-esteem, being an anxious mess, and age regression under stressful situations.
All right. First of all, you say I'm the only one that, is sort of screwed up, whatever. No, you're not. No, you're not. If you all went through it or something similar, it's affected them. It's just they've buried it deeper, or they're just not letting anyone see it. Why wouldn't they want anyone in their family to see that they've gone through pain or are experiencing pain as a result of that shit? Because they see what's happening to you, Brandon. And they don't want to eat shit like you've eaten shit. Furthermore, remember what I always tell you guys, family myths, family belief systems, right? And the family myth, every family has a myth. Oh, in this case, it's Brandon's the fucked up one. Just look at that fucking dumb shit. He's the fucking problem. We're all normal. So a myth system has been created in your family in which you are at the bottom of the totem pole. You are at the bottom of the pecking order. You are the family shit stick. As Carl Jung called it, he said, the family patient. Every family has a family patient, or many families, and you're it. And by making you look like the bad guy, all of us can sit back and say, hey, my shit don't stink. Fuck you, Brandon. Fix yourself. You're fucked up. Yeah, and to your point, no child comes out of the womb with zero self-esteem. That's right. I say that all the time, right? The belief is mom and dad are good. Mom and dad love me. Therefore, if I'm not getting love, I must be the problem. Well, yeah, tell me a 3-year-old. Tell me anything a 9-year-old could possibly do that would justify that child believing that they are a problem or there's something wrong with them. Well, there's nothing. They're beautiful. Children are beautiful, every last one of them. And they're good. And everything they're doing is a fucking reaction to the pain that's being expressed onto them. So you were taught a lie. The bottom line is any parent who would do that to the child is fundamentally not engaging in love towards the child. Furthermore, the parent isn't a good parent if you're doing that to a child, villainizing the parent, villainizing the child to keep myself looking pristine and to keep myself out of it. That's not good parenting. Therefore, the original premise, mom and dad are good and mom and dad love me, was false to begin with. They didn't. And they're not good parents. That's shitty parenting. And them allowing you and facilitating you believing that you are unlovable, that's horseshit. There was never anything wrong with you to begin with. But here's the real thing, Brendan. When you said there, how do I get them to understand? How do I get them to, Brandon, you're wanting them to change. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, Brandon, they're not going to change. And that's true, but that's not the point here. The family myth, the family belief system, this is my work, belief systems, right? The family myth exists to protect the person at the top of the food chain. Remember that. The family myth exists to protect the person or persons at the top of the food chain. And there may be persons, but there's always one that is at the ultimate top. And so all of your siblings, everyone is engaging in and believing in the family myth, which villainizes you, demonizes you to protect the person at the top. Why? Because everyone else is scared of the person at the top. One of the questions I often ask clients is, what was the power distribution in your parents' relationship? And, power can come in many forms. Power of money, fear of the in-laws, fear of you turning the kids against me, fear of going broke, fear of you leaving me, fear of being alone, the power of the private parts, that, you'll cut me off, I won't get any sex, or whatever. All these different powers going on, there's always a power distribution, and it's never exactly 50-50. That means one parent ultimately is the person at the top of the food chain. But be that as it may, the bottom line is, Brandon, how do I get them? When you say the words, how do I get them to understand me? How do I get them to, what you're fundamentally saying, Brandon, you are wanting something from them. And you're like, no, I'm not. Yeah, you are. You wouldn't want them to change unless you wanted something from that change. And what you're wanting from that change, and I've cycled through this enough times with enough thousands of clients over the years to know that you're wanting essentially establishment. You're wanting establishment of some type of relationship. I want my parents back. I want a normal parent-child relationship, or I just want acknowledgement of what's been done to me. Well, then what? Well, maybe an apology, but I wouldn't even need an apology. I'd need an acknowledgement. And then what? Well, then I guess I'd feel finally justified, like I wasn't a bad person. I'd feel like I have some worth. Exactly. And then what would that feel like? It would actually feel kind of good. Then I could finally breathe. Then I wouldn't feel bad about myself. It'd be like this release of all this pain that I felt my whole life. Exactly. And what would that feel like? Oh my God, it would be like peace. I'd finally be happy. And then what? Well, then I could finally start my life. Rob, question for you. I have never gone and watched the New York City Marathon, even though, we live right here. And I've never watched the Boston Marathon. The Twin Cities Marathon, said to be one of the most beautiful in the United States, actually went right in front of my house on Minnehaha Parkway. My kids would go out there and give them oranges. But I've never been at the starting line of a marathon. Have you?
No, I've known people who have worked the marathon, and it's quite an experience, but not myself, no. Okay.
One of the things I know, though, about marathons, even though I've never witnessed the opening of a marathon, I bring this up within the context of talking to Brandon and how he wants his parents to change, his family to change, so that he can get the acknowledgement, or so that he can have a relationship that would then be a loving one where he gets his worth confirmed, and then he would have peace, then he would have happiness, and then he could sort of begin his life, right? In marathons, the fastest runners, the ones that have the best times from previous races, they all get rank ordered, and the ones with the fastest times start first. And then they sort of line you up based on previous times. And so you may be back blocks, many city blocks, a quarter of a mile, or hectare, not hectares, fucking kilometer, whatever the fuck it is in metric land. That's 12 packs minus centigrade.
2 kilowatts behind.
Yes, that's it. Minus a fucking liter of beer and something. Anyway, the point is, time elapses 2, 5, 10, 20 minutes before you cross the starting line. Brandon, you're waiting to start your life until you get confirmation of your worth from them. Your entire life has been on hold. You can't even cross the starting line because you can't relax, because you've been taught to disbelieve in yourself, to not even love yourself. You can't even hear your fucking voice. All you hear is their condemnation pulsing, throbbing in your hair. You ever been to a fucking rave? Ever been to a fucking Van Halen concert? Pa, 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 pa. That's what's hitting in your head every goddamn day of your miserable fucking life, isn't it? You haven't even crossed the starting line because you think you can't, because you don't believe in yourself, because you're still trying to get that love cup filled that should happen in a child by age 4, by age 8, where they believe in themselves, they can hear their own voice, they have communion with their own inner authentic voice. And you don't have that yet. You're still waiting to cross the starting line of life, and you're saying, I can't do it until these people confirm my worth. And that's the problem. Rob?
Yes, Brandon says, I know they won't change, but I can't help but still long for things to be different.
Right. Of course you can, but your word's there. And I get what you're saying, Brandon. I totally get it. And we got a lot of people in those exact same shoes listening in, tuning in around the world. But the notion, I can't help, you can help. I know what you mean is it's so hard. I keep, like a dog going back to its vomit, right? Okay, but the bottom line is, until you go into the pain and I can't help it, and the sadness, what you're fundamentally doing, even knowing they're not going to change, what you're fundamentally in the slow process of doing, and you can accelerate the process, is grieving. You're grieving the death of the family, that you never had a family, really. Grieving the death of the love that you wanted from them, that every child should get. That the point of having a parent is that you're going to love this child. Not just protect, but love the child, right? And you didn't get that. And you're grieving that, and it hurts, and you feel like you've been alone the whole time. And in fact, you have been alone the whole time. And that loneliness and that pain that goes with it, all of that is the heaving, to heave like the biggest vomit of all that pain of life has to come out of you. You have to keep going into it. You have to be deliberate. It can't just be the wringing of hands. Why won't they? Why won't they change? I want them to change. You can't just wring your hands. You actually have to go into the pain, welcome it all up, and facilitate the exit through your journaling, through your counseling, through writing letters to all of them, and keep writing the letters that you do not send. Because if you're sending it, you're still trying to convince them. The goal of the letter writing and the journaling is to flush it out. All right. Moving on, onward and upward.
You got some great new metaphors today. I'm loving this. You're on fire, dude.
I'm on fire, baby. Well, I tell you what, it's because I got a little extra caffeine today. I went to my Starbucks, and I always order my mocha, half calf, non-fat, no whip, half calf, half decaf, and 180 degrees. And I always watch their fingers when they're punching in 180 degrees, because I always say not extra hot. Because extra hot is a default if someone wants it extra hot, but I say 180, which is more than, and they actually have to hold their lever down a little longer. I used to be a barista 3 years, right? Back 25 years ago. Anyway, the point is, I can tell, I've watched it enough times, they have to open up a new screen, type in 180, and then hit enter. And the young woman this morning, new person, I knew she didn't open the screen, and I said, did you get the 180? She says, yes, I got the 180. And then it goes over to the barista behind the bar, and I know my baristas. I love my baristas. It was Olivia this morning. And I said, but Olivia was really, really busy, so I don't dog her, love her to death. But the bottom line is, I said, did you get the 180? She says, yeah. And then I think she got distracted, and it came out. And what I noticed, Olivia was just doing her job. She's just reading the tag. It never went on the tag as 180, so I just got a normal. But point is, what that means is when it's 180, I drink it slower. Therefore, if it's not 180, I drink it faster. And I didn't do half calf today. I did 2 shots in a separate cup. And I poured, I took a little bit right away, but then I poured the 2 shots in. I don't normally do 2 shots. And because it's not 180, I drank it faster. So I took 2 shots in fast rather than 1 shot in slow. That's why I'm all jacked up Mountain Dew. All right.
I always learn something in this show.
I'm telling you, man, Starbucks, I love my Starbucks. I do. Although I like little coffee shops too. Those are so cute. I like the mom and pop shops. All right. Next question.
Andrea on YouTube says, please ask Sven Rob. Yes, I will. I found the key that has been in my pocket the whole time. Now, how do I use it?
All right. Just so people are familiar with the metaphor that Andrea is using, one of the things I talk about is that when a child is raised to believe that they suck, that they're unlovable, that they're no good, that it fundamentally traps them in this prison of belief system, this belief system that I'm no good, that I'm unlovable, that I don't matter. And it's like you're in a prison and you believe it's like there's a hole in your love cup that no matter how much love you get poured into your love cup, it's never enough, right? Because it all just spills out the bottom. I never feel love. I don't pool with love inside. And so what I tell people is, like Brandon earlier, Brandon, if you're still listening, you're wanting that parent to come and validate your worth, to release you from that prison cell that fundamentally they locked you in by teaching you that you're the problem, that you're not good enough. All right, the movie Good Will Hunting, where he has that epiphany, right? He's in the office with Sean at the end, Robin Williams, and Sean says, it's not your fault. No, Sean, don't fuck with me, man. No, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. And then he breaks down because he realizes finally that him getting his ass beaten by his old man was never his fault. And all of his life had been a reaction to the belief that he was fucked up. All right. So what Brandon is wanting from earlier question is confirmation of his worth. That fundamentally what you're wanting is that key to the prison cell that mom and dad have kept me locked in because of the belief system that they taught me. So now Andrea is saying, I have the key, but what, Rob? I had to get everybody up to speed there.
Now, how do I use it?
Okay. Then the using of it is having the key is the realization. It's sort of the epiphany, the understanding. But then the using it is going into then the beliefs, the fears, and the pain that was caused to you, and that just has to be flushed out. You guys have heard me say this 10 million times till Tuesday. But it has to come out. You have to drill down because there's more down there. And furthermore, you have to begin to then ask yourself the question, what are the implications of the fact that I was taught beliefs about myself, that I don't matter, my feelings don't matter, I'm no good, I'm unlovable, I'm never good enough, I'm a loser, I'm unwantable, I'm unlovable. That what are the implications of that? Holy shit, that means, wow, that's why in my marriage, I've been allowing this person to tear me down. Oh my goodness. So that's why with my kids, I'm constantly giving them love because I'm wanting them to say, I love you, Mom. Or that's why I'm always saying to my kids, oh, so I'm just the shitty dad, because I want to have them say to me, no, you're a good dad. I'm still using my kids to get my needs met. Or that's why in my career, I had to have such high levels of success because I was trying to negate that message I had been taught by myself that I suck. So what I'm saying is, once you realize that a message was imprinted into you at a very young age, you have to begin to then expand that and say, well, how has that impacted my life? And this is what your journaling is for, folks. How might it have infected that girlfriend relationship that I had with this girl when I was 16? And how might it have affected that? How might it have affected my career choices? And it's going more and more into it. And again, it sounds like a long process. Length isn't the point. Depth is the point. The deeper you go into it, the faster the release from all of this. But you have to begin also flushing out the pain and the fears that go with all of this. Again, that's what the book is for. There's a hole in my love cup. All right, we're going to end it on a very easy one. And Amber simply asks, what is your all-time favorite book? That's an excellent question. I am so vain that it's mine. No, I'm kidding. No. And in fact, in my book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup, I list 9 books that are not mine. And I list them in the beginning of the book. Usually you'd give an annotated bibliography at the end of your book. I put it at the beginning because back in the day, Amazon let you look inside the book. And I wanted people to know you don't have to buy my book. Just read these 9 books, okay? And it will have a very similar impact. These are books that have impacted me. I basically have 3 go-to books that I go back to all the time. One of them I keep behind me. It's actually on the studio here on our shelves. And because my work is in belief systems and the power of beliefs, and I'm not talking about religious beliefs. That's my background is religious belief system, world religions. It's why I studied Latin, Koine Greek, ancient Greek, Hebrew, German, going back into world religions, Shinto, Zoroastrianism, Jainism, all of those, and finding the truths in native religions. Thus, One of my top 3 favorite books is, of course, The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell. It's based on a PBS series, public TV series back in the 80s, where he was being interviewed by the brilliant interviewer, Bill Moyers. And if you have not read that and you are interested in the power of belief systems, read that. Now, I've taken it out of in my work, I've taken it out of the religious belief systems and the notion of the belief system of self and interpersonal relationships and family and inner child. Okay, that's number 1. 2, the book that I tell people to go, this is one of my Bibles that I go back to. It's pithy, it's simple, it's easy to read. It's new agey because it came out in the late 80s, early 90s. It was an international bestseller by a new agey author, but it's so real clean in terms of connecting feelings, energy, and intuition. And the title is Living in the Light. Now, there are many books by that title, but this one is by an author whose last name is Gawain, Gawai. And, of course, Sir Gawain was one of the Knights of the Round Table. And her name is Shakti Gawain. Shakti, for those of you who don't know, in Hinduism, is the female of the god Shiva. Right. Anyway, Shakti Gawain, Living in the Light. And it's just so clean. If you ever get it, it's only used now. It's out of print. Don't get the audiobook. I've heard it's not the best reading of it. But it's a real simple read, but it's just so clean. She just lays it out really well. I personally go back to that. I look to crack it open to a page where I have a highlight. I read that highlight. That's my inspiration for the week. I go back to it, probably 100 times in a year. And then the third book that cracked it all open, Amber Nicole had asked the question, what are my 3 favorite books? The 3 that have impacted me. I take that as the 3 that have impacted me most. I have been a fiction reader, but it's the stuff that most hits me is nonfiction. And I don't get to read as much now because I don't read other people's work when I'm writing, and I'm constantly writing, and I have to hear my own voice and all that I'm learning from my clients and from your questions and I'm culling that and crafting new theories and so forth. And so the third one is the one that started it all for me. As you know, I was raised by clergy. I was raised in a religious home, but not the bad kind, the good kind. And then when I was 19, Nikki Bell, when I was going to school at Gustavus for a year and a half after I'd left the Air Force Academy, where I got most of my education done, and then I was at Gustavus and ended up graduating from Augsburg. But Nikki Bell handed me a book. She said, Sven, you need to read this book. And the book was by Richard Bach, Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. And that book is about as thick as a pad of paper. Not very thick at all. A brilliant fictional read. It's the easiest book you've ever read. It's the same author who wrote the book, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which is the kids' version, a little kids' version, and brilliant. My girlfriend and I have read it. We'll take 2 weeks and we'll read Jonathan Livingston Seagull a little bit each night, and it has beautiful pictures. You could literally read Jonathan Livingston Seagull in 5 minutes. But we like to take our time with it. But Illusions is sort of the expanded version of that, and it basically cracked open all of my thinking. It started the whole thing for me. And so I'll go back to Illusions maybe once every 10 years and just leaf through it again. That's Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah by Richard Bach. So those are just the 3 that for me personally speak to me. All right, Rob, you get closing words today.
Actually, I'm going to leave it to Michaela on YouTube. I'm going to paraphrase her. She says, last year I got your book. You told me to journal. I didn't believe it, but now I can't live without it. It helps me so much.
Wow. I love hearing that, Michaela. And the book is There's a Hole in My Love Cup. You can get it at badasscounseling.com, audiobook, ebook, paperback, in Spanish, and there's a workbook. I love you guys. So to all you badasses everywhere around the world, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by 2-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.